Marie Antoinette is often portrayed as a spendthrift queen, a woman who manipulated her husband and practically provoked the French Revolution herself, ultimately paying for it with her head on the guillotine. But behind this vivid image created by revolutionary propaganda, the story of her children was almost completely lost. Children who were left orphaned, subjected to unimaginable cruelty by adults, and forced to go through a living hell. In today's video, I want to shed light on their story, and together with you, answer one difficult question. Should children have to pay for the sins of their parents? Leave a like, and let's dive into the story. In September of 1787, a young artist was invited to Versailles to paint a portrait of Queen Marie Antoinette. But this time, it would not be another portrait of her dressed in extravagant gowns and glittering diamonds as usual. Instead, she was to be painted alongside her children. By that point, her popularity among the French people was collapsing rapidly. Her critics mockingly called her the Austrian woman and Madame Deficit, and this painting by Elisabeth Louise Vigée-Lebrun was meant to restore the image of the monarchy and remind the people that, before anything else, Marie Antoinette was a mother, just like countless other mothers in France. But sadly, the portrait changed very little because each one of the children standing beside her in that painting was destined for a terrible fate at the hands of the very same people who had once celebrated their births. For 7 long years after the marriage of the young royal couple, Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI were unable to have children. All of Versailles blamed the young Dauphine for her supposed infertility, while her mother, the Austrian Empress Maria Theresa, sent her long and deeply intrusive letters demanding almost detailed reports about her intimate life. Just imagine's pressure this young girl was living under when she had been only 14 years old at the time of her marriage. The issue of producing an heir became so serious that even her brother, Emperor Joseph II, personally came to visit the couple to give them advice regarding their marital relations, though he also cruelly described them as complete blunderers. Still, perhaps his advice truly helped, because over the following years the couple would have 4 children: Marie-Thérèse, Louis-Joseph, Louis-Charles, and Sophie. The couple's first child was a girl, Marie-Thérèse, and at a moment when the entire country had been waiting for a male heir and a dauphin, her birth disappointed almost everyone except her parents. Marie Antoinette herself wept with happiness after giving birth and said her now famous words: "Poor little girl, you are not what was desired, but you are no less dear to me on that account. A son would have been the property of the state. You shall be mine. You have my undivided care. You will share all my happiness and you will alleviate my sufferings." In a way, those words would turn out to be prophetic, because Marie-Thérèse would become her mother's final comfort and the keeper of the story of her last days. For Marie Antoinette, motherhood became a profound turning point, and in many ways a period of personal growth. If in the past her thoughts had revolved around extravagant gowns and court entertainments, she now began spending much of her time away from Versailles in the Petit Trianon, the small chateau gifted to her. Even her style began to change, as heavy, luxurious dresses gave way to lighter and simpler clothing. She even decided to breastfeed her daughter herself, but as soon as her mother, Empress Maria Theresa, after whom the little girl had been named, learned of it, she immediately forbade her daughter from doing so. The child received the title Madame Royale, though within the family she was affectionately given the playful nickname Mousseline la Sérieuse, or Madame Sérieuse. Almost immediately, pressure began building around the Queen once again, with everyone insisting on the necessity of another pregnancy. Only 3 years later, after several miscarriages, Marie Antoinette finally gave birth to Louis-Joseph, who became the heir and dauphin of France. The celebration surrounding the birth of a male heir was so overwhelming that people reportedly stopped one another in the streets and embraced out of joy. But the boy upon whom all of France placed its hopes was never truly healthy. At the age of 3, he suffered a series of severe illnesses accompanied by high fevers, and soon began the slow decline caused by tuberculosis, the symptoms of which, for some reason, almost no one around him seemed willing to notice. Even though Marie Antoinette herself wrote anxiously in one of her letters, "His body is bent, one shoulder higher than the other. He is extremely thin and weak." Interestingly, the couple's third child, Louis Charles, born in 1785, was such a large and remarkably healthy baby that during the pregnancy, many people even believed the Queen was expecting twins. After his birth, Marie Antoinette lovingly described him as plump and rosy-cheeked, like a peasant child. But throughout the halls of Versailles, persistent rumours spread claiming that the father of this unusually healthy little boy was not the king, but Count Axel von Fersen, the Swedish nobleman with whom the Queen was rumoured to be having an affair. Nevertheless, Louis XVI himself never once doubted the child's paternity. By 1788, when it had already become painfully clear that the Dauphin Louis-Joseph was dying, as the boy could no longer walk on his own and spent most of his time lying in a specially constructed chair, this second son became the family's main comfort and final little spark of hope. Marie Antoinette was especially attached to him and affectionately called him her favourite. Louis Charles was a sweet and gentle child, somewhat shy, frightened by loud noises, and occasionally prone to lying. But despite all of that, he became an endless source of joy for his mother, especially after the death of their youngest child, little Sophie, who survived only 11 months after her birth. And if we return once again to that famous portrait, you can actually see the empty cradle where Sophie was meant to be lying. But by the time the painting was finished, the baby had already died, and the cradle remained empty. But the death of little Sophie was only the first in a long chain of deaths that would begin to haunt the royal family. On June 4th, 1789, Louis-Joseph died in his mother's arms. His death went almost unnoticed by the very subjects who had once celebrated his birth with such joy. The dawn of the revolution was already rising, and no one seemed to care about the grief of the royal family anymore. On that very same day, a delegation from the National Assembly demanded an audience with the king, and Louis XVI reportedly exclaimed, "Are there no fathers in the National Assembly of the Third Estate?" But perhaps those two children who died young received a more merciful fate than the ones who survived. After his brother's death, little Louis Charles became heir to the throne, though he himself did not understand what that truly meant. As the situation surrounding the French Revolution spiraled completely out of control, the royal family was forced to leave Versailles and found itself effectively under arrest in the Tuileries Palace in Paris. Little Louis could not understand what was happening, and as they were driven through the streets, he cried out from the carriage window, "Have mercy on my mother! Please, have mercy on my mother!" The boy likely also remembered the terrifying night when an enraged mob stormed his mother's chambers, and Marie Antoinette barely managed to escape in time. Most of what we know about those years comes from Marie Thérèse, who was 10 years old at the time. She remembered how her parents secretly planned their escape from Paris, and how the attempt ultimately failed. She remembered sleeping beside her mother for safety. The family spent 3 years together in this captivity, and despite the conditions growing steadily worse, despite being forbidden from walking freely and constantly subjected to humiliation, they still tried to preserve some sense of family life. Their parents continued teaching the children, and they spent nearly all of their time together. But on August 10th, 1792, when a crowd of nearly 10,000 people once again marched towards the palace, intending to destroy the royal family, they were transferred to the Temple, a medieval fortress that had been turned into a prison. Nothing remained of their former luxury. Now, the family was crammed together inside a cold stone tower. And tragically, during those years, these children were forced to witness horrors no child should ever have to see. At one point, the severed head of the Queen's close friend, the Princess de Lamballe, was placed on a pike and carried beneath the windows of their prison in order to torment the deeply hated queen. In September 1792, the monarchy was officially abolished and France was declared a republic. With every passing day, the fate of the royal family became more fragile. Soon, the trial of King Louis began, and in the end, almost every juror voted in favour of executing the former king. Marie Thérèse would remember forever the family's final meeting with her father, how both he and Marie Antoinette wept during their farewell. The goodbye became so unbearably painful that Louis himself asked not to see his family one final time before the execution, hoping to preserve what little emotional strength he still had left. The next day, they heard the deafening screams of the crowd outside, and those screams meant only one thing: the king was dead. Marie Antoinette and Marie Thérèse bowed before little Louis, who had now become the new King of France at only 7 years old. This little boy, who barely understood what was happening around him, had now become one of the most dangerous people to the French Revolution, and the decision was made to take him away from his mother. The former queen fought desperately for her son and said she would surrender him only at the cost of her own life. But after threats and pressure, she was ultimately forced to say goodbye to him. He was taken to another tower where his mother and sisters could hear the child crying inconsolably for days. Representatives of the revolution decided that Louis Charles needed to be re-educated and turned into a proper Republican citizen, and for this task they chose a man named Antoine Simon. Simon forced the child to drink large amounts of wine, refused to call him by his real name, and instead referred to him only as the little wolf cub, cut off his hair and made him sing revolutionary songs, while calling his own mother and sister prostitutes. He was woken several times during the night, doused with cold water, beaten, and forced to do the dirtiest work around the prison. Under pressure from his tormentors, the boy was eventually forced during the trial to falsely accuse his own mother of horrifying and unnatural acts no mother should ever even be imagined capable of committing against her son. Accusations that, of course, Marie Antoinette never admitted to. Not long afterward, Simon left his position, and while officials debated what to do with the child next, Louis Charles was locked alone inside a small room that contained nothing except a bed and no proper toilet. Guards passed him food through a small opening in the door and spoke to him only to make sure he was still alive. No one entered the child's room for 6 entire months. Just imagine what a child looked like after spending half a year imprisoned in complete isolation, without proper hygiene, without movement, and without adequate food. Eventually, the influential politician Paul Barras visited the prison and was horrified by the conditions in which the boy was being kept. He demanded improvements, and Louis Charles was moved to another room. A doctor was finally allowed to examine him, and at one point the child was even permitted to go outside for a short walk. During that walk, he gathered a small bouquet of flowers for his mother because he still did not know she had already been executed. But the months spent in such horrific conditions had already destroyed the child's health. The little boy, who had once been strong, lively, and full of life, had become a frail creature with a twisted spine, swollen knees, and constant illness. Soon, his condition deteriorated even further, and he began suffering from hallucinations, saying that he could hear his mother's voice. Louis Charles died on June 8, 1795. His doctor secretly removed and preserved the boy's heart, which survives to this day, and later made genetic testing possible, while the child's body itself was buried beneath an unmarked stone. And so ended the story of a child who could have become the King of France, but instead became a hostage to the cruelty of adults. A boy who had not managed to commit a single sin in his short life, and yet somehow paid for every mistake of the royal dynasty. The only surviving child of the French royal family was Marie Thérèse. She knew nothing about the fate of her mother and, just like her brother, believed that Marie Antoinette was still alive. She also knew nothing about what had become of Louis Charles, and after they were separated, she saw him only one final time, managing to embrace him briefly. On the wall of her room, she scratched the words, Marie-Thérèse, the most unhappy person in the world. She too was supposed to die, but because she was not a boy and could not claim the throne, it was eventually decided to exchange her for French prisoners of war. She was sent to Vienna to live with her mother's family, and in a cruel twist of fate, she travelled along the very same road her mother had once taken years earlier on her journey to France to become queen. At the Austrian court of her relatives, Marie-Thérèse refused to wear traditional Austrian clothing and continued dressing in the French style, choosing black mourning garments for her murdered family. When she was later married to Louis Antoine, Duke of Angoulême, she chose as her wedding ring the ring that had belonged to her father, the same ring Louis XVI had sent to Marie Antoinette before his execution. But sadly, Marie-Thérèse's greatest dream, becoming a mother herself, never came true. Perhaps the trauma of everything she had endured affected her too deeply. Years later, Marie-Thérèse would finally return to France, visit the graves of her parents, and become an active figure during the Bourbon Restoration. Napoleon himself reportedly gave her the nickname the only man in the family because of her strength and determination. Her husband, the Duke of Angoulême, became Dauphin, and later the next claimant to the restored French throne, even technically becoming King of France for about 20 minutes before abdicating in favour of his nephew. And so, over the course of her life, Marie-Thérèse managed to hold many different titles: Madame Royale, Dauphine, and even, for a brief moment, Queen. She spent the remainder of her life in exile, moving from one royal court to another. Marie-Thérèse died at the age of 72 in October 1851, and in her will she wrote, "I pray to God to shower down his blessings upon France, France that I have never ceased to love even under my bitterest afflictions." The idea for this video did not come to me by accident. Very often, under my videos about the children of Marie Antoinette or the family of the Russian Emperor Romanov, I see comments saying that neither the murdered monarchs nor their children deserve sympathy, because supposedly they never felt sympathy for the children of ordinary people whose lives were endless suffering. But can cruelty really cure cruelty? And is it truly fair to punish a parent through the murder of their child? Personally, I don't think so, because no matter what their parents may have done, children are not responsible for their sins. The little 7-year-old Dauphin, tortured by the revolution, and his deeply traumatized older sister, Marie-Thérèse, were not guilty of being born into a royal family. They had only just begun their lives and had absolutely nothing to do with the financial collapse of France, with their mother's extravagant lifestyle, or with the weakness of their father's character. And yet, they paid an unbearably high price for all of it, a price children should never have to pay. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this story. Leave your opinion in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.